Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to wait a few seconds for people to enter the room here. Thank you for being here. There's some people. Yep, I see the number increasing. Awesome. So we'll let you all drift in. I'm going to go ahead and start with introductions. So, hello and welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the impact of Tourette syndrome on families. My name is Jiao Duong, and I am the Senior Manager of Community Programs here at the Tourette Association of America. I'm also joined by my colleague, Haley Carlton, Youth Education Programs Coordinator, who will be helping me out in the chat tonight. Tonight's program is being provided as part of the Tourette Health and Education Program in partnership with the CDC. And so the views expressed tonight by our wonderful panelists and moderators do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial practices, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. So we're really excited tonight to present tonight's program on Stronger Together, Navigating TS and Tic Disorders as a Family. We'll learn about the impact of TS on families, hear about their unique support needs as family members, and discuss how Family Together can work hard to promote that overall family cohesion. So we're in for a treat tonight. After tonight's presentation, we will be asking attendees to partake in a fairly brief survey to let us know what you thought of tonight's program. Tonight's session is made possible by support from the CDC. So not only is your feedback really important to us here at the TAA, but it demonstrates to them the value of programming like tonight's. So thank you so much for keeping that in mind. A few housekeeping items. Please put your questions into the little Q&A box underneath your Zoom screen so you can capture those questions for later. The chat is available for any sort of emotions, reactions, and then Haley will also be sharing some resources as we go along tonight. So thank you so much for being a part of that. All right. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the amazing Shoaff family, which you see here. We have first Ryan and Shelly Shoaff. They've been married for almost 25 years. Shelly was a stay-at-home mom for several years and began working in administration at a community behavioral health center. Ryan was a youth minister for many years and now works with developmentally disabled students at a local middle school. Alan. Alan is 22 and was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome at the age of 14. He currently works at a preschool daycare with preschool kids and loves working with them. We have Hunter, his brother. Hunter's 20 and is a freshman at Ashland University studying exercise science. He's a part of Kappa Sigma fraternity at Ashland. And then we don't have Catherine here tonight, but Catherine was originally going to be on the round table. We wish her the best of luck with her musical show coming up. Catherine is the baby of the family and is also a freshman at Ashland University, working towards a Bachelor in Fine Arts, minoring in Performance Arts, and has been a part of many great multiple productions, it seems like, on campus. So we miss her, but we hope to catch her later on another program. The Shoaff family have never looked at Tourette syndrome as a disease or a hindrance to Alan, but something that it's a part of who he is, and they're very proud of that. So we're so excited to be able to talk to the Shoaff family tonight. But before we launch into our content, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a quick knowledge poll just to gauge our knowledge tonight before we launch into the content. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that poll now. So give me 1 second to pull that up for you all here. Will someone give me a thumbs up if you can see this pre-poll in your screen? Awesome. Thanks, Haley. So go ahead and take some time to answer these questions really quickly. So first question is, what are some ways families can support a loved one with TS? We have here, get educated, do some research, listen, practice compassion, or all of the above. Wonderful. Question number 2, how can families get involved and advocate for the TS community? We have here, find a chapter, a local support group, attend a community TS event, educating others, all of the above. So I'm going to wait till we get about like 70% participation because I want to make sure folks are getting a chance to answer this poll here. So thank you so much for participating in that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Any stragglers left? All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Thank you so much for participating in that. And we'll do it again later to see if you're paying attention, but it's not that hard. So I'm pretty sure we'll get it. All right, thank you everyone so much for doing that. So we're going to go ahead and launch into our roundtable for tonight. I'm so excited. So we have here our first question of the night, and I'm going to go through each question with each family member and give them a chance to answer the question. And so maybe I'll start off with Ryan and Shelly. So what was your experience like initially when Alan was first diagnosed with TS. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna talk first.
You talk. I'm trying to remember.
Alan was 14, which it feels like a really long time ago, even though he's only 22. But part of it was, I think, a little bit of almost relief because he had been going through a lot of health things, and it just took a really long time to figure out. Uh, all of the things that he was going through. He had health issues, but also just some of the tics. We didn't know they were tics. And so they had started several years before he was diagnosed. And a lot of it was somebody put him on medication because no one ever said Tourette syndrome until he was 14. So it was like we tried some medication and we tried this and then we stopped doing that. And then he had some health things and some, issues that we were just navigating and we didn't know what it was. And then maybe it was, a form of epilepsy and all of these different things. And then so when we finally got the diagnosis, it was a little almost relieving because our psychologist, she was amazing. And she was just like, so you have Tourette syndrome and this is what it is and this is what we'll do. And it was so calming almost to just kind of have some answers. And I think again, our doctors and the medical team that we worked with helped a lot with that. So, do you have anything that you want to add to it?
No.
So I said all the things.
You said all the things.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's great. I think we hear that a lot about that relief that comes with that diagnosis, right? The clarity that comes with it. Let me turn to Hunter, because, Alan's your brother. What was it like for you when you found out that he was diagnosed with TS?
To me, it was mostly confusing because Alan is 2 years older than me. So I was 12, I was in sixth grade, and mom and dad did not tell me really anything that was going on. All I know is that Alan did certain things, he acted certain ways, different from other people. I didn't know what it meant, I didn't know what he was doing. So for me, it was a lot of confusion, and I just listened to whatever my parents told me. Hey, he's gonna do this, he's fine. And I just listened and kind of tried to just go with the flow because I had no clue what was going on. So I just was confused mostly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It was
mom and
hard because
dad,
we
like,
didn't know a lot
yeah,
about it. Nobody knew a lot about it.
yeah.
So we had to learn a lot first. And then
Mhm.
it was hard when, you're just trying to navigate this and nobody knows anything. So it was rough.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later too. Like it's like educating yourself, but then educating for the rest of the family, right? And that's tough. Yeah. Alan, what was it like for you when seeing your mom and dad go through this, seeing Hunter kind of share this confusion? Like, what's it like for you in that first initial couple of months of within diagnosis?
Excuse me. Yeah, so it was a lot. I've always struggled with wanting to kind of protect my parents from things. Like I went through a lot with them growing up. My dad was very sick. He had a botched kidney transplant when I was only
Mm,
5, Hunter was 3. And so I kind of internalized the sense of like I have to protect them even though it was a lot. It was very
mm,
irrational. I'm looking at both of them almost making sure through the screen that I add that part that I know it is irrational because I do. Um, and with my siblings, kind of like they all touched on, like because we didn't know
mm,
what was going on for sure, we were learning so much that we didn't quite have the capacity that we do now to be able to explain what was going on. I
mm,
just knew that I was struggling a lot and I needed to lean on my family in some way. And at the time, we were all just trying to navigate what that exactly looked like. And I think in the years since, I mean, it's been 8 years since I was diagnosed, which is crazy to think about. Um, we've kind of figured out a really solid way of helping me realize that I can count on all of them in varying ways and for varying things. So it's nice looking back at those moments and not thinking about how I didn't really know what was going to be happening, comparing it
mm,
to kind of how we all kind of figured out through trial and error what we needed to do. So.
mm. Oh my goodness, this is just the first question. You have me feeling all the warm fuzzies already. So this is great. No, I think you're not alone. I'm hearing this and I'm hoping other
Mhm.
families and parents on the call also can resonate with this experience right in the beginning. And so Wonderful. What a great start. So we'll go to the next question and let's see here what we have up next. So kind of we talked about this a little bit more, but I want you to elaborate, mom and dad too. Like, how did you really educate yourself on this? Besides, of course, working with a provider, of course, like did you reach out to any other resources or people or supports that you found helpful during that time?
Yeah, so of course I mentioned how his doctors and psychologists that we work with were super amazing. Just we spent a lot of time going up there, not only just for sessions with the psychologist, but they also started doing things just like peer groups. So like we would go up and they would have like everybody together, and then they would have the kids in one group and then the parents in another. So it really opened up like opportunities just to share stuff with people that you knew were going through the same thing. And also like learning about what Tourette syndrome was, like what it meant. So then they did a really great job. And so I spent a lot of time doing that with Alan. And then I would come home and I would share with Ryan and say, okay, these are the things that we learned, and try to educate him too. And I think honestly, when it really started helping us understand more and even sharing with the kids, Hunter and Catherine, was when Alan started getting involved with the TAA and became a youth leader there. So
Youth ambassador.
Thank you. I said the wrong word. Youth ambassador, but that we learned a ton through that process. And then we came home and doing CBIT and stuff too. Absolutely. Just learned a lot about how we can navigate through that and help kind of feel more in control of it. And we were able to then teach the family more.
Hunter, what was it like for you in the initial pieces? Did you like reach out to friends at all or like online, or what did you turn to first to kind of educate yourself?
Personally, I did not really ask any of my friends about it because if they knew anyone that had Tourette's, it'd be Alan because they know him. So I turned to my parents a lot. I'd ask them questions. I'd make fun of Alan because I'm the younger brother. That's what I did. So whenever I would do that, he would explain to me, hey, this is what this is. This is what I do. And I'm 20 years old in college, and I talk about it in some of my classes. So I'm still continually learning about it to this day. And it's been 8 years, and I still am learning. So mostly my parents and Alan is who taught me.
Wow, that's amazing. And you continue to try and educate yourself, keep yourself like updated and all that. That's amazing, Hunter. Alan, I'm going to go to you. So I know, you're so involved with the TAA, but before you got involved with us, like what was your first exposure to TS education?
Being diagnosed.
Yeah.
So that was like the biggest thing, is because to kind of springboard off of what my mom was saying, it was going to those groups. I found out about the TAA through my psychologist, who's Dr. Katrina Lindsay. We've kind of danced around the name. She works very closely with the TAA. We can't sing her praises enough. And she was the one who really kind of pushed me to get involved in not just educating myself, but educating other people, because that was kind of like I feel like the last aspect and step that I needed to kind of be more assured of who I was with it, and that it wasn't just like controlling every aspect of me. Like if I can help other people learn, I'm not going to be constantly thinking in fear of what is going to happen because I have this. I'm not going to go into class and everyone's going to stare at me or have issues. And thank you for the correction on her name. Sorry, I just saw that.
Oh, it's okay. Yes, Dr. Hermitet.
Yes, Dr. Hermitet now. Sorry, not to completely switch what I was saying, but it was
It
kind
was
of like
Lindsay
the
then,
last.
and so it's hard to get out of our mind.
Yes,
It's just
yes.
so ingrained over the years. But it just really kind of was the last thing that I needed to kind of further how kind of accepting of myself that I was. And it really helped a lot, and it caused me to learn a lot more, not just on how to educate others about it, but just what it meant to experience it at all. Like I'd only seen a small sample of what Tourette syndrome in someone looked like, and I've got to meet some incredible people who their Tourette's is extremely different than mine, even if there are some tics that end up getting picked up within a group with. It's completely night and day sometimes. Like I don't experience coprolalia, and all but maybe like 4 people that I've become super close with through in the TAA do, and that's sometimes putting it mildly. And so it's caused me to kind of really understand the community a lot more. And I think it's hard for sometimes the longer you do this to kind of sit back and say to yourself that you're still learning every day. Like that doesn't just stop once you start getting involved or a diagnosis happens. You're always learning about what it's like to live with it and how others live with it and how it's perceived and everything that just kind of comes with living with Tourette syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you're living and you're that living that education journey for yourself too alongside your family. And you mentioned a really good point, Alan, about having sort of a knowledgeable provider, right? That can support you straight from the beginning. We talked about Dr. Katrina Hermitet, and maybe this is something Haley can put to the chat as well for our audience members. We have a find a provider database, right? That where you can search for a local specialist in your area that can support you with this education piece from the beginning, right? And continue to support that along the way. So just wanted to point that out. So really great points. Awesome. Okay, let's go on to the next question here. So this is going to be a little interesting. This one's, I made it a little vague because I wanted you all to kind of think about in your individual roles within the family. So mom and dad, brother, Alan, right? What are some ways that having a Tourette syndrome diagnosis could impact the family as a whole? And you can speak from your specific, perspective as part of being the family. So let's start off with Hunter, actually. I'm going to go first with Hunter.
So when Tourette's actually kind of impacted our family both positively and negatively. Personally, at the beginning, it impacted me very negatively because I have an older brother with a health issue that nobody knows, and I have a younger sister. So in the middle, I felt forgotten. And then as I got older, I'm like, this isn't a negative thing, it's a positive thing. He gets to teach the world about what this is. He gets to teach me. He gets to teach everybody that he comes in contact with. And he, like, it became kind of like a cornerstone of our family because not everybody deals with this. I don't, and nobody I've met since has had this. So, like, I feel like it makes us unique because he kind of like changed our whole world and it wasn't on purpose. He can't control it. So I feel like it started out very negative and through the 8 years from 12 to 20, it has turned into a positive thing.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that you used the word like cornerstone. That is so important, right? As a family to turn back to that cornerstone, right? That touchstone, right? Again. So, mom and dad, what's your response to this one? So, well, how did you think it impacted you as a family?
Well, I think it's hard, like even thinking about what Hunter said there too, like when you have more than one child as a parent, you want to make sure that each child gets the same love and attention and needs. So it's hard because when one child does, it becomes hard. Then how that can impact, no matter how hard you try, your other children and what they go through. And knowing it, and for Hunter, like that's true, because the baby is also the only girl, so that kind of changes, you know. Not only does she get all the for
Oh, I
being the
think
baby,
sorry, the audio is breaking up for me. I'm not sure that's the case for everyone else.
so
Mhm.
too. So that because we need all the attention that we needed to him. We needed to learn of this and out this out. Is that a little better?
Sorry, old technology.
Let's give it a couple of seconds to catch up. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, it was just lagging on my end. Not sure if everyone else was experiencing that a little bit.
It was lagging pretty bad, yeah.
Is this a little bit better?
It
Yes.
is infinitely better.
Oh, good. Maybe it just needed to catch up. But I just was saying about how like it kind of brought us closer together as we navigated through, how that impacted us. And I think what Hunter said was really very true.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Alan?
Yeah, I mean it was difficult for me a lot of the time because like This is the question that's going to make me emotional, which is fair warning. I mean, Hunter already got me a little bit because what he said is very true. Like, I didn't really understand that that was happening at the time because all I was doing was just kind of pushing people away more than anything. Um, and in retrospect, it really did cause me to be a lot more at the forefront than I ever really wanted to be. And I know it was unfair to them at the time, and sometimes still kind of feels like it is, even though it isn't, because we've talked through this stuff and worked it out. But it really kind of was so much for me to even comprehend that I was causing that effect so much to the family because all I just saw it as was a giant pain in the butt for me to deal with, instead of something that actually impacted all of us. And I'd say it made all of us closer throughout the years. Like my brother and I were inseparable growing up, like as little kids. Teenage years, we were teenagers. So there was that bickering. We didn't like despise each other, but to say that we were friends, it would be on a good day, that's for sure. And then now he can tell me if I'm wrong. I'd like to say we're pretty tight now, which I think a lot of it is kind of realizing all of the things that we've gone through and getting closer through that, as well as just your brothers. You're always going to have that bond as long as you're willing to have it there, and we are. Even if it's something as simple as just cheering for football teams or stuff like this that we're talking about now. It's really caused us all to get really close. It just came in a way that none of us really expected to be in the playbook, that's for sure. But as difficult as it can be some days, it's not something I'd change for anything. So
Oh, Alan, thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable with us tonight. And I can sense the love and the support that your family exudes, right, for this. And so, thank you for sharing that. Let me go ahead to our next question here. Let's see what we have next. So this was interesting because I always like to ask this aspect of along our family community programming. So maybe I'll start off with mom and dad. What did acceptance look like for you as you learned more about Tourette syndrome, about Alan's kind of navigation through that journey? What did that look like? Or did it appear at all initially?
Would you like to answer this one first?
I'll be honest, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, like acceptance. What did it look like for us? Like, or even for you?
Acceptance of Tourette syndrome, acceptance of Alan, acceptance for Alan. I guess that's the
all of it.
Question. I mean, I'm a very rational person to a fault. In to me, my kids and my family are who they are. Good, bad, ugly. Legitimately, when Alan was diagnosed and I started to learn about Tourette syndrome more and more, I'm like, oh, that's Alan. That's exactly who he is. He now is starting to make more and more sense to me. So as far as acceptance goes, I mean, I had and have my own health issues. And so just because he has this neurodevelopmental, did I say it right? Disorder, it doesn't change who he is. Anybody with this, it's just something that you can't control. Yeah, you might make some weird sounds. You might use some language and say things not the best of times. And you may have body tics that, can be distracting to others, but you don't have control of that. So you know what? Everybody has their own thing. And when you look at somebody because they have tics as being different or odd or anything, look in the mirror. You've got your own issues. So why are we pointing out the things that other people can't control? So like if we look at ourselves and say, oh, I've got this, or I have that, he has this, he has that, we're no different. So acceptance to me means that we all have our own own basket, bag, box, whatever of things that make us unique, that make us stand out, but it doesn't mean that it makes us any less of a person. It doesn't mean we should be the butt of a joke. It doesn't mean that we should be looked down upon. Um, and I've worked with middle school and high school kids for the better part of 24 years. And that's one of the things that I'm not a teacher now. I'm an aide that works in a school. I work with sixth grade students right now. And those are things that I try to teach, that things that you look down on others for, you've got your own thing that they could look down on you for. So we're no different. We all have our own stuff. So let's figure out how to look beyond those things that may be a distraction or whatever you want to bring to the table. As far as Alan goes, I mean, as soon as I understood him more, as far as, because legitimately he's on a basketball court in seventh grade, and he's having tics, and I have no idea what they are, and I'm like, you got to stop that, because I had no
We
clue,
didn't know, right?
no idea what any of that was. And so now I'm like, oh, well, now it all makes sense. This is what was happening. And as soon as I understood, he's always been Alan. Now I just understand who he is better, understand why he is the way he is a little bit better. And nothing has changed. He's my son. It doesn't matter what he has.
I think Ryan said, like, earlier, one of the things that we learned was just like the characteristics of people that have Tourette syndrome. Again, like these superpowers, they're, very intelligent, they're hyper aware of what's going on around them, they feel other people's feelings, and they notice things. We were just like, yeah, check, that's Alan. Yeah, check, that's Alan. It just fit. So I felt like, again, wasn't necessarily even thought of as acceptance. It was just like, oh, okay, well, that's Alan. Like, it just totally fit.
Oh, thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for sharing that. And I want to go and ask Hunter this question too, because we get a lot of questions from our communities who are, asking about the siblings, right? The siblings of a sibling with Tourette syndrome, and kind of that acceptance and that support looks sometimes a little different, right? So, what was it like for you, Hunter? And I know you're very close to your brother, so I just wanted the audience to be able to hear what you have to say about your acceptance journey.
So for me personally, it kind of just took time more than anything. I was young, he was young, so like as I got older and matured, it like kind of just came naturally as I learned what it is, what he has, and like what he will end up doing. It kind of just came natural. The hardest part for me with accepting him was in school. So Alan's only 2 grades above me, so we were in high school at the same time. We were, pretty close in like everything. My friends knew him, his friends knew me, all that stuff. So the hardest part was kind of like realizing in school, it's you're not gonna get away from it. Like it is who he is. He's gonna do what he's gonna do, and you can't like I can't protect myself or him from that. So like I just have to be like, okay, these people are gonna say this, these people are gonna act this way towards him, these people are gonna act a certain way towards me because they were, teenagers too. They have no idea. All they know is, oh, they're different. Look at him. So I think the biggest thing for acceptance was just getting older and just realizing, hey, you can't change this. He can't change this. You just have to kind of deal with it and, just support each other and find people that are there for you that can just make you just feel better because there's always going to be somebody that's trying to, tear you down, poke at you, stuff like that. So just find people that you can be with to like build you back up because in school, in sports, at home, everywhere, there's always something that like somebody doesn't like about you. So you just have to be able to like roll with it, go with the flow, keep yourself who you're trying to be with, like all your friends stay together and just realize this is what's happening. You can't change it.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, that's great. And Alan, anything to add to that after hearing your family respond to this
I mean,
question?
yeah, like it for me, the hardest part wasn't accepting the Tourette's aspect of it. It was just me in general. I struggled with self-hatred for a long time and depression and suicidal ideation, and getting to the point where I can not only just accept the aspects of me, but actually like who I was the hardest part. To the point where like the words never even bothered me after a certain point. Growing up, it was very different, but once I got into like late junior year, senior year of high school, and then beyond, it just became noise, annoying noise, but just noise. Like it
Mm,
wasn't anything that would actually like cause me anything to bring me down. And a lot of it was simply because of what Hunter said. Like you grow up, you mature, and an unfortunate side effect of that is a lot of it is simply because you just get so used to it, they just end up bouncing off of you at that point. So it's not even anything you consider worth listening to. Um, and it's made life a lot easier. I would say it is not something that is easy to come to. It takes a lot of personal growth to be able to say that some pretty horrible things being said to you for reasons simply because you're, making sounds that people don't understand or making grimaces and they don't like how you're looking at them in a way that you literally had no idea you even did because you're ticking, and sometimes it's
mhm,
just such second nature that it's just noise at this point to me is purely because of the work I've put in to kind of grow as a person. Um, and it's not an easy feat by any means. It's something that goes on your entire life. And to say that it's just a whole one and done thing, like, oh, I've grown, I don't need to grow anymore. It, I'm chuckling because saying it out loud even sounds crazy because just like learning about Tourette syndrome, that aspect never stops. Um, and that was kind of what acceptance was to me, was just accepting not just myself, um but the fact that there's going to be this perception around it that we can do everything in our power to
mhm,
change, but
mhm,
it's going to be impossible for some people to change their opinion on it. And
mhm,
you kind of have to accept that aspect and know that you've done everything in your power to make your world easier and the world of other people within your community easier. And even if not everyone is going to rally around you while you're doing it, you know that you have the people you can fall back on. And knowing that my family has accepted that aspect of me, and I know that they're always going to be there for me to fall back on, even when they're not always here physically, really helped me in that journey to get to this point.
Amazing, amazing. You guys, this is such thoughtful, really thoughtful, and such amazing answers to these questions. And I hope that the families in our audience today feel that, right? Like this support and this acceptance is so important for them as a family. And everything that Alan has done to this point, I'm so proud of you, Alan. We at TAA are so proud of you and your
Thank
family,
you.
for all the work that you do. So that's, it's amazing. All right, are we ready for the next question? Let's see what we got here.
Absolutely.
So this was more kind of like straightforward, but maybe beneficial for those in our audience that are newly diagnosed, right? Still learning about this. So you talked about, you went to find support in different realms. So how did you find that support for yourself? What resources did you find helpful, whether it be through the TAA or through a chapter? Can you share some of those things so that way our audience members can take note and perhaps, look into those resources as well?
Yeah, so a lot of it was purely through just getting the treatment I had. Obviously, this aspect is going to be difficult for anyone living outside of Ohio in any way because a lot of that comes from just, my experience being here. But going to Akron Children's Hospital, working with Dr. Katrina Hermitet, and those connections that I made there have been tenfold in helping me out. But as much as I continue to sing their praises to this day, like nothing, and this isn't because I'm just on a webinar, but nothing's come close to what like the TAA has been for me personally and my family. Like I have people I would like to consider lifelong friends that I've met through the TAA. connections that I know are always going to be there, people that have helped me out in some of the most difficult times of my life, both recently and during that time frame. And it's something that you never know is going to be a part of getting involved in this stuff. You like to think that you're going to meet people that you're going to connect with, but the main goal for most people when they get involved in the TAA, whether it's reaching out to them for support or getting involved directly like I did with the Rising Leader or Youth Ambassador program. I went to both and met some amazing people. Um, you don't realize when you go there to seek help and get the education that you need to figure yourself out, to figure out a family member, if it's your child, if you're a parent, or even if it's like a sibling. I know some people who are youth ambassadors that purely are doing it because they have a brother or a sister that has Tourette syndrome, which I think is incredible. I'm not saying that to push that onto you, Hunter. I promise. That's genuine fact. I think it's great that they've done that. I'm not expecting you to do this. And you walk away from it realizing that the resource that you went to simply to just get some education or some help to make that road that you're on easier is impacting you in a way that you're like, my phone won't stop blowing up because the group chat that was created at an event from 6 months ago has 94 notifications on it now. And it's not just close friends that'll be there for you in hard times, but it's people that just remind you that like life can still be fun. It's not this all dour, dire situation. It has its moments where it absolutely feels like it is. But kind of like my dad said, it's just something that we live with. It's hard to get out of the mindset where you think it is the worst thing in the world because it has those moments where it is hard. Sometimes those moments last longer than a day. They last months, sometimes even up to years. But I've gotten to the point now where even when I'm in those difficult months, weeks, however long it lasts, that I know that not only do I have my family that is amazing to lean on, but I've got my second family, which is my friends like family, whether they're from the TS community or not. But a lot of them have come from this community.
That's amazing. Mom and Dad, can anything to add to that?
Yeah, I one just second everything Alan said. But I do think it's really great to be able to find, other parents. So when there are events, just being able to get involved and be able to share your story. And what helped me sometimes is to be able to share. And Dr. Hermitat was always great and would say, Shelly, I have this new patient, and it'd be great for the mom to talk to another mom. And I found that through that was really awesome as well, because then you just kind of found someone who you could share stories and you could relate to with that. So I think that that is super wonderful. And I know, like, as the TAA grows and just people are able to come out and just talk about things and share things and be open. I think that in itself, that's natural support, that's natural community support, that is really important. So,
Yeah, I'm hearing the community and connection is so important here. And we want our audience, and especially for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we have, our chapters and our local support groups in your areas around the United States, but we also have online support groups, which are virtual ones, and they're available for parents and young adults as well. So I'll have Haley put in the link if you're interested in learning more about those resources as well. So awesome. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. So this one, it's probably we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think this one I wanted to turn to Hunter first. So as a sibling, right, in the family, and when you were going through all of this with your family and Alan, what did like compassion for yourself look like at this time? Yeah.
So me personally, it's gonna sound very mean, but I try to forget about him as often as I could. So
Mhm.
I try to go like play sports, hang out with my friends, do things that I like to do because, it's a very serious thing. And, you start as a young age at 12, you don't know how to really handle hard things like that. So I try to, go to my friend's house as often as I could, go play sports, go to the park, do all these things where he wasn't always involved because sometimes being able to take your mind off of like something very heavy like that, it helps a lot. So me being able to forget about him made me feel better sometimes, which is, I know sounds very mean, but being able to just take time for me, whether it was, I don't read, but read a book, go do something that like you like to do personally, take a walk, go work out, go play with friends, whatever. So that was me as a young age. That's how I dealt with it when I was growing up, I
Yeah.
guess.
And I don't even, I mean, this is just me, and it might be because I know him, but I don't consider it mean at all. But it's also simply because there are moments where I have people that I'm really close with, whether they're family or friends, and sometimes I just need to forget about their existence because
Hmm.
as much as I want to be there for them when they go through moments, and I know that there are people that have had to do this for me because getting down in the deep with some of the things that I've struggled with, you have to remember that you can be there as much as you can. And as much as we would love the line of as much as you can to not exist, we hit that line. And we got to remember to take time for ourselves and just kind of do what we need to stay healthy. And especially with Tourette syndrome, you absorb a lot of that aspect of what others are going through and feeling. You internalize a lot of it. So I don't hold a grudge to anyone who feels like they need to do that, but especially not him because I know what it was like and I know his personality
Mhm.
because if he didn't have those times and moments where he could just get away, it would be a lot uglier than it was. And I don't even say that in a negative way. It's just because he was going through a lot too, just being a part of it.
Mhm.
And he had his own issues that had nothing to do with me. You know, we all do in this family. Like we're a team together and we take on a lot together, but in the same time there are things that one of us goes through that the others are never going to experience themselves. And I mean, that's just family for you. So
Mhm.
I think it's really great that he said that because it was very true, but it's something necessary that I think people in general just need to do sometimes. And I can imagine what that's like when we were going through all that, that it was just something that was absolutely necessary, whether it was going to a friend's house or I'm sure football practice was like the most glorious thing ever during that time frame. Yeah, I thought so.
Sally, Ryan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that I'm really proud of my boys for kind of recognizing that you have to take care of yourself sometimes, and that you do want to be there for each other, but you have to sometimes protect your own mental health through the process. And I think as a parent, you tend to think like, what did I do to cause this for my child? Like, naturally as a parent, we do that to ourselves. Um, we think, what could we have done differently to make sure that didn't happen? And those are all torturous things because there's nothing we could have changed. There's nothing that we did. So having to learn to kind of give ourselves a little bit of grace as a mom, I think, not that a dad doesn't do that, but I think sometimes a mom does that even more so. So just to give ourselves grace a little bit to say like, that's not the case. And there wasn't anything that you did wrong or you'd have done differently. And the more that I learned and, just grew as a
Mhm.
parent and grew understanding Tourette syndrome more and more, then that compassion came almost through that learning process at the same time. So, and knowing that, each of our kids are unique and have different things. And sometimes, we're almost too hyper aware of each of our children and what they're kind of going through. And,
Mhm.
we tend to be very much like, you doing all right? I'm noticing this about you today or whatever. But
Very true.
I think that made us, more aware for our kids and there for them, whether they liked it or not.
I don't do that at all.
No, that is a lie.
That was sarcasm for those of you who have trouble picking that up.
Coming from the dad from tonight's roundtable, so quite
Yeah.
timely. Thanks, Ryan.
Yes.
And I'm hearing a lot of, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of take space, right? Like take the space that you need, but also give grace.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
the audiences kind of get key takeaways from tonight, right? There's some very important self-care, compassion, right? Things that we can, do to take care of ourselves. It's a lot. It's really difficult. So thank you for sharing that, family. All right, let's see here. So I know I'm trying to keep an eye on the time here, and I want to make sure we get to some of these other questions towards the end here. But let me see what the next question is. Looking back now, was there anything you wish you had more support on? Maybe let's have maybe Alan and parents go quickly for this one. Then I want to get to the next question. So.
I'll be really quick. Honestly, I am really thankful because I don't feel like, man, I wish I had more of this. Because we had Dr. Hermitet, because we had the program at Akron Children's, because we had the TAA. Alan and I got to spend some individual time with Amanda Tolte. And that was an amazing experience in itself too. And learning from her and just her compassion and love for the TAA and for Alan. And so I'm really blessed that I don't feel like there is anything that we wish we had more support on. We had really great support through this organization. Again, it's not because we're not commercial, we're not commercial. It's just genuine. This is what we kind of experienced. So Alan, I'll let you take over.
Yeah. And I know like every story is different. And we have always acknowledged that in terms of like my diagnosis and my care journey, we have been very lucky in terms of the provider care that we've received, minus like when help for Tourette syndrome was not very popular. Like when I got diagnosed with nervous tics and they just called it a day and gave me anxiety medication when I was 9. As much as that was not the extent of things, it was also in 2011, which granted, it doesn't excuse things, but it kind of paints a better picture to understand the time frame of what was going on. And when I was going through the diagnosis and the really rough year that was just a part of, we had a lot going on. I was the depression I was experiencing was very heightened. I didn't leave my house for like a month and a half almost. And anytime I kind of think about the support I had or quote unquote didn't have, any support I didn't receive, it wasn't because it wasn't there. It was because I was pushing it away. Whether it be from my family or from my friends, who some of them made sure I couldn't push them away. My friend Jake sent me a video of him doing something stupid every day to try to make me laugh and just said, "I love you, buddy," and to caption it. We call it the Jake House Cures Depression series in our household. And it's like, and I think back to those moments, like, even if I didn't think that I had support, it's like it was surrounding me. There were just a lot of moments where I didn't want to accept it. So there's nothing that I can really look back on and wish that it was different from me. But I also acknowledge that, at least for some, not all families are the same. Some people don't have the dynamic that I'm very blessed to have with both of my parents and my siblings. Or provider care. It is hard to come by because I have heard horror stories about what it is like not only receiving care, but even getting a diagnosis in the first place. I understand that I'm blessed to be able to say this, but there's thankfully nothing that I look back on and wish it was different.
Thanks for sharing that, Alan. And I think it really brings back to having that, like you said, that provider that is there from you from the get-go, right? Being able to support you from A to Z. And so really reach out to us at TAA, reach out to support@tourette.org. If you need that support to find a provider referral in your area, we're happy to support with that piece as well. So it's wonderful to hear that TAA has been a part of, your support journey from the very beginning, and we're happy to continue to be so that's wonderful. All right, so the next set of questions is more about self-advocacy now. So we're going to talk about, I want to hear from your family, any ideas or things that maybe you've done, right, to advocate for yourself as a family, but also for the Tourette community. What are some of those memories or experiences that have you participated in or benefited from?
I think honestly, just taking time to educate other members of your family is a big start. I know Alan presented his youth ambassador, presentation to my parents and Ryan's parents and my siblings, their aunts and uncles and their cousins and just other people to, educate your extended family. Because then the more they know, then they start sharing their, the story and their information, what they know to their people. And so you honestly, I don't think sometimes we've gone too far outside of our circle, but At the same time, it's always an opportunity when I talk about Alan having Tourette syndrome, even at work. I work at a community behavioral health center. I work with counselors and a lot of people, and a lot of them don't even always know. And so Alan did a presentation to counselors that work in schools, and it's just opportunities to share your story. And the more you educate the people around you, then they start educating people around them, who educate the people around them, and it kind of just goes on from there. So definitely, it's hard to not be afraid. It's hard to open up about it. But once you find a safe place to do that with other support, it's amazing what can come from it.
Hunter, Alan, any thoughts on that?
You want to go?
You want me to, or you want to?
It don't matter. You can go first.
I was waiting for you to say that. Okay. So that's not me being mean, I promise. So it's just purely just a lot of the same things that I've said before. It just so happens that I've got a unit with me in that realm. Like, advocating to my own family was a big first step that I felt was necessary. And they're some of my biggest supporters. I think of my pap, who is my dad's dad, who loves and supports everything I do about this whole thing, but I don't know if he's ever going to fully understand it. And that's not even me making fun of him at all. It's just, I know when we've had these conversations, he's saying things and he's almost right there, but there's just a little stray from the path where I'm like, you're getting there. You're so close. But it's not me saying anything mean to him about it, because I know how much he cares for not only me, but like, he knows that this community means a lot to me. And by definition, it means a lot to him too. So out of all of my siblings, he loves all of us, and I know he does. He gravitates to Hunter the most because he's the most like him. And so there's that aspect of me that I feel like we can kind of bond over, because he's learning something new from a family member that I don't think he ever thought he would, simply because of this experience. And not to say that going out into the wild, or the world, I call the world the wild all the time. But like, going out into the world and interacting with people, whether it's just me talking about my family, or my family talking with others, it's kind of funny to me that there are stories that we have of that. But what sticks out the most to me is also kind of how that advocacy has been inside of my own family. And there's always one moment I think about where I always can kind of lean on, where I know my family is going to advocate for me just as much as I was. I played soccer in high school, and there was someone a dad to the opposing team, who was kind of, he was a sports parent. And he was kind of heckling out at me because his son was attacking where I was defending, and I was doing a lot of neck and head shaking ticks, and he had made a comment about me shaking my head no because he knows I could hear him. And I told my dad about this after the game, and based on what he was talking about in regards to what had happened, I'm glad I was the one who heard it and he wasn't. And it's always been something that just stuck with me, of like, I know that my family has my back regardless of what the situation is, and that they're always going to keep learning for me. And not only are they going to keep learning, but they're going to implement what they learn into sticking up for me in whatever ways possible. So that's all I have to say on this one. So if Hunter has anything to add, I'll let him take it away.
All I got is basically, don't be ashamed of it, whether you have it or you know someone that has Tourette's. Don't be ashamed of it, because if you're ashamed of it, no one's ever going to learn anything. So, like, whether you're in school, at the store, at work, wherever, don't hide it, because then no one's ever going to learn. No one's ever going to be able to grow. So just be yourself 100, and don't hide the fact that you have Tourette's or you know someone that does.
Yeah, and don't suppress ever, because it's very painful later.
Wise words, Hunter. I'm so happy to hear this. So I'm going to go ahead and actually skip to one of my favorite questions that I ever ask on roundtables, just because we're approaching like 8 o'clock-ish on East Coast time, and I want to make sure we get to some of these questions in the chat here. But the last question for the roundtable for tonight is, I wanted to go, let me just skip ahead to this one here. This is my all-time favorite question. I want all of you to answer really quickly. What superpowers have you all gained as a result of having that TS diagnosis in the family? So I know you mentioned a little bits, pieces here and there, but I kind of want to end it with like a really cool highlight in terms of what superpowers have you gained or do you already have and are proud to have?
I'll say for me, what I gained is a little bit of Alan's superpower of being hyper aware of what's around him. And I feel like I'm very much more so that like I am really conscientious when I see someone who might be ticking or things like that. Like I immediately want to like give them a hug, or I notice something that maybe I wouldn't have noticed before. I would have thought differently about it. What about you?
I don't know. Legitimately.
We could come back. We could come back to you, Ryan.
Yes. Alan, what's your superpower?
I think of just how it's gonna sound weird when I say this, but like the fun we have with it, like just ticking in general. Like there are days where it can be very painful going through ticks. I've had bruises. I'm sure many people who've had Tourette syndrome end up with bruises or a hurt voice because of their ticks. But like the ones that don't hurt have kind of become just simple jokes within the family. Like I was thinking about it. I didn't that's an that's an echo tick to where I do it, but if I hear that sound too, I'll echo the sound being made. And so much so to where like, and it's one that I don't care if it ends up getting triggered because it doesn't hurt, it's not loud. And it's kind of a silly noise, so it just makes me kind of chuckle at it as long as it's not making my ticks worse, obviously, which I'd let them know if that's the case. But it got to the point where like they would echo it with me so often, my dad and my sister especially, that they'll start doing it without realizing it too. And so I joke with them that
They're like, oh
they gave themselves ticks for triggering mine. And it's like this it's like probably my favorite joke that has kind of stemmed from this. But like it allowed me to kind of remember to kind of be lighthearted about certain things. Because if you it like I've said before, if you are dire about the whole situation as a whole, you kind of miss the rest of what life has to offer. Like life is a pain, but you keep living. So it just you kind of have to pick and choose how you want to see certain things. And ticks, living with ticks and just Tourette syndrome as a whole is not an easy thing to do. And so if there's an aspect of that part of your life that you're able to somehow make fun, not make fun of, but turn it fun is the proper wording I should use. Turn it in a fun manner that that's kind of what I'd pick as mine. Plus, I remember when I was learning about the superpowers that come with Tourette syndrome going through CBIT, Dr. Hermit said that a new one that should be added should be clever wit. And I think about that all the time based on how my family is surrounding how things have been over the years. So that's what I would pick.
I love that. Hunter, what's your superpower?
I think I've gained two. Mine are probably I'm very more aware of emotions of me and other people. And two, I used to care a lot what people thought about me. And I think learning from Alan, I'm able to not care as much what people think of how I act or what I wear, things that I do. So those are probably my two emotions and not caring about others' opinion.
That
Amazing,
second one I give
amazing.
you a lot of credit for too,
no.
because we were very different growing up. I did not care at all because I was very I internalized a lot of the how much I didn't like myself and just decided to not like anyone, to just be completely honest. And so I was not very popular. I had a couple very close friends, but I wasn't the most popular kid in the world. Hunter is the opposite of that, and that's not even me like saying it to be rude. He was very outgoing. He played football and was very vocal and chatty, and he made a lot of friends that way. And like you said, I think it kind of turned into you caring a lot about what people thought, and now you just don't in the best way, genuinely. And I think it's awesome.
Awesome. All right, Ryan, did you come up with a superpower?
I honestly
Close
don't
out the
know if
night.
I have one.
It's probably the
They
same as
may
mine.
they may see one, but I'm not aware of one that I have.
I would think it'd be the same as mine. I think he
Yeah.
notices and is a little more sensitive to seeing things too.
Awareness, yeah. Awesome. All right, family. Thank you so much for that. That was a wonderful roundtable. And I just love you all so much. Like this has been so insightful for me, but hopefully for our audience members watching as well. If you do have maybe like 1 or 2 minutes to answer maybe one question I saw that come up in the chat. And I know Sarah has been putting in the comments here, like she said, Alan, I love your optimism around living with TS. It gives me hope for my daughter. Just I want you to know that people are really appreciative of your storytelling here tonight. She did have another question I wanted to ask the family. And so she mentioned they have an 11-year-old with TS who was diagnosed around 5. They've seen occupational therapists, but haven't sought out any other additional support. Not sure where to start or what she may need. It's all very overwhelming. Any suggestions on where to start or what support was the most impactful for you, Alan? So this one may be more specifically geared towards Alan, but parents can chime in too. You can see it in the chat.
Oh, Alan, we can't hear you, buddy.
I had the microphone muted. We're fine now. Okay. Mine, like, it kind of goes back to me saying we were fortunate. Mine wasn't just my counselor that I had that I went through CBIT with. It was like a whole team. Was fortunate that a neurologist was part of it. The medication that I'm on is not to do with my tics. I stand by the fact that I'm never going to take medication for my tics, and that is not me saying anything negative to those who do. Do what works for you. It's very important if it helps to take those those medications if they help your tics and it causes your life to be more functional and easier because of it. But to me, they're not as big of a factor to where I feel like I need to take medication for them. But it helped with other aspects. I take anxiety meds that were done through my team that worked together to kind of narrow down what specifically about living with TS was causing me the most stress and difficulty. And at that point, it was the anxiety, the panic attacks that I have and had. And we kind of narrowed down that with targeting that aspect of my life, I felt less depressed. I wasn't experiencing tics as often, and my attitude towards living with it got a lot more to where it is now compared to where it used to be. I don't know if that's the best representation. If mom or dad, you want to kind of add to that to
Yeah,
make it,
I would
yeah.
say, as far as like looking for support, again, the TAA was a really great resource. And also, like one of the things that my husband and I were just kind of talking about was really talking to your doctor, your occupational therapist, who you're currently working with, and asking them what more support they can provide. I think that asking about groups or other people that are dealing with a family member or child that has Tourette syndrome. Again, I think that was one of the biggest things too, is that our providers started doing things like that. And Haley, I know my husband was just pointing out the finding the provider. I think using the resource from the TAA to maybe find a provider that is really involved in helping connect you and supporting you is just a really helpful thing. I know that's been a big part of us growing, and with your child being 11 too, that's a great. When Alan did youth ambassador training, there were kids around that age. He was 14. He's kind of some of the older ones. There were 10, 11, 12-year olds that were part of that group too, and it just, like Alan said, it was an amazing support and connection for him.
Awesome. Thank you. I think, let's see here. Family, are we okay to answer maybe one more question, or do we all have to? I know it's
Yeah,
8
we're
o'clock.
okay for a few more.
Okay, yeah. I think Alexis here put in the chat. I have 2 boys. One is 12, the other's 14, so kind of the same kind of age gap. The older one has TS. This has been very interesting to hear your story and the sibling relationship. I would like to know more about the sibling relationship when the tics were new to everyone. So Hunter and Alan, I think this one, you take it
Yeah,
away. Yeah.
I'll go first.
Yep.
So when Alan first started,
Okay.
oh, I got this. Okay, so when Alan first started having tics, I had a lot of emotions, and all of them were mostly negative. I was very jealous he got all the attention. I was very angry that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he all this stuff was happening, and I really just did not like him then because all this stuff was happening. He got mom always defended him, dad always defended him, and I was, young. He was older than me, so I just naturally, just how brothers are, I didn't like him, and I felt like when it first started, it just made it worse. But as I got older, 14, 15, whatever, we really started to get a relationship back because I got older and kind of got over myself. I learned that I can't do anything about this. This has to change. So we kind of built a relationship back. 14, 15, going as I got older, 12, 13 was very rough because, I was young, he was young, it was all very new. I didn't know how to handle it. So that was very rough. But as I got older and, went through school, stuff like that, it got a lot better.
And yeah, I'd kind of second that because like I said before, I wouldn't say we despised each other, but we didn't like each other. We fought a lot. Um, and I don't just mean like bickering. Like this might be news a little bit to mom and dad because it happened a lot when they weren't home. We've gotten in fistfights. They weren't fun because he's stronger than I am. Which he is very happy I just admitted that. You can see it in his eyes. But he is. It wasn't fun for me, but I was just so fed up because I understand that at the time and this is all from reflection, I wasn't fair to him because I genuinely internalized as if like there's nothing he could think that would come close to what I'm actually going through, when in fact that he's living that quite literally across the hall from me. Our rooms are 3 feet across the hall. At least the doors are. So it's like he sees all of what's going on, but I wasn't willing to consider the effect it had on him. And it just didn't help that he also was just mean. It felt like a lot of the times he was the stereotypical older brother that would bully the younger siblings because that's just more what he was like. We joke because as a kid he'd go around telling people that he was a bully. Which, I mean, as a little kid, sure, he's not anymore. He's grown up in a lot of ways, but it led to a lot of conflict and strain on our relationship as siblings. And not all siblings turn out to be friends, and at that time we weren't. But like you said, we grew up a bit. I did a lot of healing with the emotions I was dealing with, not just physically, but all of everything else that I was going with, and came to terms with it. And so did he. And we're really close now, like a lot closer than we ever have been. And like I said, when we were little kids running around, we were inseparable. So it's cool to be able to look back knowing that we've punched each other in the face and meant it, not just playing around. And now it's like I can't ever see myself doing that to him now. Don't make me eat those words. But like we're genuinely like better than we've ever been, and there are few people more proud of him than I am, which is truly saying something considering the people on this panel right now.
Alexis, and I just as a mom, I want to one, this is what happens when your kids get older, that you find out things you didn't know. So we're sitting here listening to this like, oh my gosh. But I think as a parent, one of the things is that just that consistency. Like one thing I remember telling them, when you get older, nobody else is going to understand how you grew up except your sibling. Nobody's going to understand what it's like in your household except your brother. You only have one brother. I used to say that to each child. You only have one brother,
Except Catherine. She had two.
But with the boys, Catherine's relationship was different. It was again, only girl, baby. It was just different. But with each other. And so I just, as a mom, my heart goes out to you, just because I know, and it sounds like you're going through a lot of what our household was. But I'm so proud of them for growing up and seeing all of that. And I feel like maybe some of the things that we kept consistently saying, like, and doing and just teaching and learning from each other about Tourette syndrome and just about being a family as a whole helped a lot with that.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, to our audience members, like I'm sure they're resonating with all of these experiences. So this is so wonderful. So I hate to be kind of negative Nancy, but we have to wrap it up. It is over past 8 on the East Coast, and I want to respect our time here today. But if you want the show family back or similar family programming, go ahead and scan that QR code that you see up there, and that's our survey. So please provide any feedback or any ideas that you have for future programming, and we'll make it happen. So take some time to do that. I'll leave that up. And then right before we leave here, I did promise you a quick post poll just to kind of see how we're doing and that we're not falling asleep over here. I just want to make sure that we are, just engaging with the material here and that you found it helpful. So, all right, families, I know some stragglers are still on the call. Go ahead and answer that quick post poll here. Thank you so much for doing that. I'll leave this QR code up. Awesome. Okay, wait for a couple more folks to answer. All right. Yes. So at this point, I think we all know, right? It's all of the above for question number 1. What are some of the ways that families can support a loved one with TS? All of the above. We talked about education today. We talked about listening. We talked about self-compassion. Great. How can families get involved and advocate for the TS communities, such as the Shoaffs, right? They worked with TAA, attending a local event, all of the above. There's so many ways that you can advocate, and we're here to help you do that. And so thank you so much, everyone, for answering that quick poll. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to give a huge shout out, applause to the Shoaffs tonight for being here for our family roundtable. I truly just enjoyed, listening to all of your stories and the banter between the brothers, and so thankful. And so I just feel so I have the warm fuzzy just because your family and the way you talk about support and the way you love each other and the acceptance around Alan has been amazing. So I really hope our audience members felt the same. And so we will be, again, we have monthly family community programming. So tune in for the next one next month. Actually, I have some quick events that I can share too in terms of next upcoming virtual programming. Actually, let me just share that. Let me see here. I want to be able to see. Oh, this isn't working. Well, never mind. But if you go to the events page, actually, Haley, if you want to put that into the chat, the events page, we have upcoming different workshops. We have some more, it looks like youth programming coming up in terms of like art sessions and things like that. We have a few emotional regulation workshops for both parents and teens coming up in May. And then, of course, we have TicCon, or virtual TicCon in June. So that's all coming up down the pipeline for you to visit. But really, again, thank you so much, Ryan, Shelley, Hunter, and Alan for being here tonight with us. And what an incredible conversation. And I hope we continue this, for the families out there that need to hear this and resonate with all the experiences that you have shared. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you in the next program. And if you give us about a week or so for us to upload this recording onto YouTube, so you can access that as well. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Stop the recording.